A billionaire gave a broken watch to a homeless man as a joke, but paid dearly later. William Harrison always amused himself at the expense of the less fortunate whenever he could. At 62, the wealthiest businessman in Seattle had turned cruelty into his favorite pastime, especially when accompanied by his fellow millionaires. It was on a Tuesday morning in the bustling Freedom Square that William spotted the perfect target for his next tasteless prank. A man around 40 with unkempt stubble and worn-out clothes was sitting on the theater steps holding a sign asking for work. "Look what we have here," William said to his three friends, discreetly pointing at the man. "How about we teach him a lesson about the value of hard work?" William's companions laughed in anticipation, already accustomed to the billionaire's cruel jokes. Robert Thompson, owner of a supermarket chain, already had his phone ready to record. William approached the homeless man with a fake smile plastered on his face. The man looked up, revealing tired but still dignified eyes. "Good morning, my friend," William said in a sickly sweet voice. "I saw your sign over there. Need work, do you?" "Yes, sir, I have a degree in engineering, but I haven't found anything in my field for 2 years," the man replied, standing up respectfully. "Engineering? How interesting." William feigned surprise as his friends approached subtly. "You know what I'll do? I'll give you something very valuable." The billionaire pulled out a solid gold watch from his pocket, a piece that had cost over $50,000. The problem was, the watch had been broken for months, completely useless. "This watch belonged to my grandfather," William lied dramatically. "It's a rare piece worth a fortune, but I need you to do me a favor in return." The man eyed the shiny object suspiciously. "What kind of favor, sir?" "I want you to take care of it for exactly 1 week. Then come back here same time and I'll give you the job of your dreams." William smiled maliciously. "But you have to take very good care of it, understand? It's a huge responsibility." The homeless man took the watch carefully, as if it were truly a treasure. His eyes welled up with tears. "Thank you so much, sir. You don't know what this means to me. I'll guard it with my life." Of course, of course." William could barely contain his laughter. "Just don't forget, 1 week, same time." As soon as they walked away, William and his friends burst into laughter. Robert had recorded everything. "You're terrible, William," said Michael Wilson, owner of a construction company. "The poor guy thought he'd inherited a fortune. Imagine when he finds out the watch is broken," added Daniel Miller, a textile businessman. "He'll spend a whole week protecting expensive trash." William posted the video in his private WhatsApp group, where other businessmen laughed at the situation. The video circulated among Seattle's elite as an inside joke about the naivety of the poor. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now continuing. 3 days after the cruel prank, William was in his office on the 30th floor of one of the city's most luxurious buildings when his secretary, Miss Dorothy, knocked on the door with a worried expression. "Mr. William, there's a young man here insisting on speaking with you. He says it's about a watch." William felt a chill in his stomach. There was no way the homeless man had found out who he was so quickly. "Send him in," he said, trying to maintain his composure. To his surprise, it wasn't the man from the square who entered, but a well-dressed young man around 25, with a confident demeanor. "Good afternoon, Mr. Harrison. My name is Brandon Walker. I'm a lawyer representing my father, Richard Walker." William didn't recognize the name, but something in the young man's determined gaze unsettled him. "How can I help you, Mr. Brandon?" "My father told me about the meeting you had in Freedom Square, about the watch you gave him to keep." William's face grew even paler. How had that homeless man managed to hire a lawyer? "I don't know what you're talking about," William tried, but his voice trembled. Brandon smiled and placed a folder on the table. "Mr. Harrison, my father isn't just any homeless man. He's Richard Walker, a civil engineer who graduated from MIT, specializing in metal structures. He worked for your construction company for 15 years before you took over your father's business." William felt the world spin. The name Richard Walker suddenly made sense. He was the engineer his father had always praised, the man who had designed some of the company's most important buildings. That can't be true," William murmured. My father was fired 2 years ago when you took over the company. You said it was to cut costs, but we know it was because he questioned some of the changes you wanted to make to the designs. Changes that could have compromised the building's safety. Brandon opened the folder and pulled out several documents. Since then, my father hasn't been able to find work in the field. You made sure he was blacklisted among the city's construction firms. That's why he's in that square, begging for any kind of work. William stood up, his legs shaking. And the watch? He asked hoarsely. Ah, yes, the watch. Brandon smiled again. My father showed it to me. It's truly a beautiful piece. Shame it's broken, isn't it? How do you know it's broken? Because my father is also a watchmaker in his spare time. He learned from my grandfather. He fixed the watch on the very first day. William sank heavily into his chair. His mind raced, trying to grasp the implications of what was happening. What do you want? Justice, Brandon said simply. My father just wants the chance to work in his field again, and he wants you to stop spreading lies about him to other business owners. And if I don't? Brandon leaned across the table. Then we'll release the video of you mocking my father, along with all the documents proving he was fired for ethical reasons, not incompetence. I imagine your investors will be very interested to learn what kind of person is managing their money. William knew he was cornered. His carefully built reputation could crumble in hours. Fine, he said at last. I'll see what I can do. No, Mr. Harrison, you will do it. And you'll do it today. Brandon gathered the documents back into the folder. My father will be in the square tomorrow, same time, with the watch you gave him. Only now, it's working perfectly. After Brandon left, William stood alone in his office, staring out the glass window at the city below. For the first time in years, he felt small and vulnerable. That evening, William came home earlier than usual. His wife, Elizabeth, was surprised to see him walk into the kitchen where she was preparing dinner. Are you all right, William? She asked, noticing his troubled expression. Elizabeth, do you remember Richard Walker? She stopped stirring the pot and turned to look at him. Of course I remember. He was the engineer who worked with your father. A very capable and honest man. Why do you ask? William told her part of the story, leaving out the most humiliating details of his cruel joke. You fired him? Elizabeth asked, disbelieving. William, that man saved the company at least 3 times that I can remember. Your father trusted him more than his own sons. I know. William ran his hands through his graying hair. But he was questioning my decisions. I couldn't let that slide. What decisions were those? William hesitated. He didn't want to admit he had tried to cut costs by using lower quality materials on some projects. Business decisions, Elizabeth. You wouldn't understand. She crossed her arms, a stance William knew well and dreaded. Try me, I'm sure I'll understand perfectly. William knew there was no way out. Elizabeth always managed to get the truth out of him, especially when she suspected he was hiding something important. Fine. I wanted to use cheaper materials on some projects, nothing that would compromise safety, just optimizing costs. And Richard opposed that. He said he couldn't guarantee safety with the materials I wanted to use, said his professional reputation was on the line. Elizabeth shook her head slowly. And you fired him for being honest, for refusing to compromise the safety of hundreds of families who would live in those buildings. It wasn't like that. It was exactly like that, William. She stepped closer. And now he's struggling because of you. A good, capable man who was always loyal to your family. William sank into one of the kitchen chairs, feeling the weight of guilt grow in his chest. His son showed up at my office today. They know everything. Good, Elizabeth said dryly. Maybe it's time for you to do the right thing. But my reputation... Your reputation. Elizabeth laughed bitterly. William, you're 62. You've made more money than you could spend in 10 lifetimes. Isn't it time to think about something beyond money and status? Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now continuing. The next morning, William woke earlier than usual. He had spent the whole night thinking about Elizabeth's words and the look on Richard's face when he received the broken watch. He decided to arrive at Freedom Square before the agreed time, wanting a few minutes to gather his thoughts. When he arrived at 9:30, Richard was already there, sitting in his usual spot. But this time, he wasn't alone. Beside him, a woman in her 50s held the hand of a girl about 8 years old. William watched from a distance for a few minutes. The girl played with simple dolls, while the woman spoke quietly with Richard. From their body language, William could tell this was the engineer's family. At exactly 10 o'clock, William finally approached. Richard saw him coming and stood, signaling for his wife and daughter to stay seated. "Good morning, Mr. Harrison," Richard said respectfully, pulling the watch from his pocket. "I brought the watch you asked me to keep." William looked at the object. The hands now moved smoothly, showing the correct time. You fixed the watch?" "Yes, sir. I noticed there was an issue with the mechanism. Since you said it was very important, I thought I should repair it." William felt even smaller. Richard had spent the last few days carefully tending to an object William had given him in mockery. "Richard, William began, but the words wouldn't come. "You said you had work for me," Richard said hopefully. "I'm ready for anything, Mr. Harrison." At that moment, the little girl stood and approached shyly. "Daddy, can I see the watch?" Richard smiled and crouched down to show it to his daughter. "Look, Emily, the hands are working perfectly now. It's beautiful, Daddy. The man who gave it to you must really love you to give something so expensive." William felt the child's words like a stab to the heart. He looked at Richard's wife, who watched him with curiosity but no hostility. "This is my boss, Emily," said Richard. "Mr. Harrison, this is my wife, Jennifer, and my daughter, Emily." Jennifer stood up and extended her hand to William. "Pleasure to meet you, Mr. Harrison. Richard speaks highly of you and your father. He says he learned so much working at your company." William shook the woman's hand, growing increasingly uncomfortable with the family's kindness. "The pleasure is mine," he managed to murmur. "Daddy always says your father was a great man," Emily continued, looking at William with admiration. "He said he built very beautiful and safe houses for people to live in." "My father was indeed a good man," William said, his voice choked. "Then you must be good too, right?" Emily said with the innocence of her age. William knelt in front of the girl, meeting her at eye level. "Emily, can I tell you a secret?" The girl nodded eagerly, her eyes sparkling with curiosity. "Sometimes grown-ups do wrong things, even when they know it's wrong. And sometimes it takes them a while to realize how much they've hurt others." Emily listened intently. "But when they realize, they can apologize and try to fix it, right?" "They can," William said, looking at Richard. "Richard, I need to apologize to you for everything." Richard seemed confused. "Apologize for what, Mr. Harrison?" William stood up and took a deep breath. "Richard, do you really want to work with me again?" "Of course, sir. It's what I want most in the world." "Then meet me Monday at 8 in the morning at the company office. You'll be the new project director, with a salary that matches your experience and skills." Richard's eyes filled with tears. "Mr. Harrison, I don't know what to say." "Don't say anything yet." William took out his wallet and counted several bills. "This is an advance on your salary. I want you all to leave here and buy new clothes, especially for Emily." Jennifer tried to refuse the money, but William insisted. "Please take it. It's the least I can do." Emily hugged William's leg. "Thank you, Uncle. Now Daddy can go back to work." William felt his eyes welling up. It had been years since he'd been moved like that. When the family walked away, William stood alone in the square holding the repaired watch. He looked at the face and noticed it was exactly 10:15 in the morning. For the first time in a long while, he paid attention to the time passing. He took his phone from his pocket and called his office. "Dorothy, cancel all my appointments today and call Robert Thompson, Michael Wilson, and Daniel Miller for me. I want to speak with them today." William spent the rest of the morning walking through the city, observing people he'd never truly noticed before. Street vendors, window cleaners, doormen, sanitation workers, each with their own story, dreams, and struggles. That afternoon, he met his 3 friends at an exclusive downtown restaurant. "William, you're acting strange today," said Robert Thompson, biting into an expensive sandwich. "Still thinking about that joke with the beggar?" "Actually, yes," William said. And it wasn't a joke, it was cruelty. The three friends laughed, thinking William was exaggerating. "Relax, man," said Michael Wilson. "The guy probably doesn't even know the watch is expensive. He's likely already sold it." "He didn't sell it, he fixed it." William placed the watch on the table and returned it to me in perfect working order. Silence fell among the four men. "What do you mean, fixed it?" asked Daniel Miller. William told the whole story, from discovering that Richard was his former employee to that morning's meeting with his family. "You're telling me you gave that guy a job?" Robert sounded incredulous. "I didn't give him a job, I gave him back the job I unfairly took from him." "William, you're getting sentimental," said Michael. "Business is business. If you fired the guy, you must have had your reasons." "My reasons were wrong." William took back his watch. "And you're just as wrong if you think humiliating less fortunate people is fun." "Wow, what a sermon." Daniel laughed nervously. "Seems like the beggar converted you." "It wasn't the beggar who converted me." William stood up from the table. "It was my own conscience." He left the restaurant, leaving his three friends speechless. He knew he'd probably lose those friendships, but for the first time in years, it didn't bother him. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now, back to the story. That weekend, William was visited by his eldest son, William Harrison Jr., 35, who also worked for the family business. "Dad, I've been hearing some strange rumors about you," said Junior, sitting on the porch of the Harrison mansion. "Robert Thompson called me saying you hired a beggar to be project director." William sighed. He knew this conversation would happen sooner or later. "I didn't hire a beggar, Junior. I rehired Richard Walker." "Do you remember him?" Junior thought for a moment. "Vaguely. Wasn't he the guy who always disagreed with your decisions?" "He didn't disagree out of spite. He disagreed when I was about to do something wrong." "Dad, since when do you care what employees think about your decisions?" William looked at his son with a mix of sadness and disappointment. "Since I realized my decisions can affect many people's lives, and that being rich doesn't give me the right to be cruel." Junior laughed as if he'd heard a joke. "Dad, you're getting old. You're losing your business instincts." "Maybe I am getting old," William agreed. "But I'm also getting wiser." "Wiser? Dad, you just promoted a guy who was begging on the street to one of the most important positions in the company." "I promoted an experienced, competent engineer who was struggling because of me." William stood up. "And if you can't see the difference, maybe you should rethink your role in the company too." Junior was visibly shaken by the implied threat. "Dad, you can't be serious." "I'm completely serious, Junior. For years I ran this company thinking only about profit. I forgot the values my father taught me. But I won't forget anymore." That night at dinner, Elizabeth noticed William was more thoughtful than usual. "How did the talk with Junior go?" "Disappointing." William cut a piece of meat. "Seems I raised a son who thinks exactly like I used to." "And that's bad?" "Very bad, Elizabeth. Very bad." They ate in silence for a few minutes until Elizabeth spoke again. "William, can I ask you something?" "Of course." "Why did you really fire Richard Walker?" William set his fork down and looked his wife in the eyes. "Because he found out I was using inferior quality materials in the Evergreen Gardens Residences project. Materials that cost 40% less but could compromise the building's structure in the long run." Elizabeth paled. "William, that building has over 200 apartments. Entire families live there." "I know." William's voice was barely a whisper. "Richard warned me about the risks. He said he couldn't sign off on the project with those specifications. I fired him on the spot." "And was the building constructed with the materials you wanted?" William nodded, unable to speak. "My God, William." Elizabeth rose from the table. "You risked hundreds of lives to save money?" "It wasn't just that," William tried to explain. "I was in financial trouble at the time. I'd made some bad investments and needed to recover the money quickly." "That doesn't justify anything." Elizabeth was visibly shaken. "William, if that building has structural issues—" I know. William buried his face in his hands. "That's why I haven't slept well for 2 years. That's why I have nightmares." Elizabeth sat back down, calmer but still shocked. What are you going to do now? I'll hire an independent company to conduct a full inspection of the building. If there are any problems, I'll cover all necessary repairs. And if the problems are too severe to fix. William looked at his wife with tear-filled eyes. Then I'll pay to relocate all the families to new apartments, even if it means losing everything I have. Elizabeth stood and embraced her husband. I always knew deep down you were a good man, William. I just forgot for a while. On Monday morning, William arrived at the office earlier than usual. He wanted to be there when Richard arrived for his first day of work. At exactly 8 o'clock, Richard appeared at reception, wearing a simple but well-kept suit. William personally went down to greet him. Good morning, Richard. Ready to get back to work? More than ready, Mr. Harrison, Richard smiled nervously. I spent the whole weekend studying the company's new projects. William led him through the office, introducing him to the staff. Some recognized him and greeted him warmly. Others seemed confused by the situation. When they reached Richard's new office, William closed the door behind them. Richard, before we officially begin, I need to tell you something, and I need your help. Richard sat down, intrigued. What is it, Mr. Harrison? William told him about Evergreen Gardens residences, the substandard materials, and his fears about the building's safety. I want you to oversee a full inspection of the building. Hire the best engineers you can find. Don't worry about costs. Richard listened in silence, his expression growing graver. Mr. Harrison, if there really are structural issues in that building, I know. That's why I need someone I trust to handle this. Someone who puts people's safety above all else. But sir, if the problems are serious, it could ruin the company. William stood and walked to the window. Richard, my father built this company on two principles, quality and honesty. I lost sight of that in recent years. If ruining the company is what it takes to do the right thing, then so be it. Richard was silent for a moment, processing what he'd heard. All right, Mr. Harrison, I'll start organizing the inspection today. Thank you, Richard, and call me William. I think it's long past time we dropped the formalities. Over the next 2 weeks, Richard worked tirelessly to arrange the inspection of Evergreen Gardens residences. He hired 3 different structural engineering firms to ensure reliable results. William, meanwhile, began making significant changes to the company's management. He cancelled contracts with suppliers who didn't meet proper quality standards, even if it meant higher costs. He also launched a training program for all the company's engineers, focused on professional ethics and social responsibility. Junior was not at all happy with the changes. Dad, the company's costs have gone up 20% in 2 weeks, he complained during a meeting. The investors are starting to question our decisions. Let them question, William said calmly. I'd rather have investors questioning our costs than families questioning our competence after a building collapses. A building collapse? Dad, you're exaggerating. I'm being realistic, Junior, and if you can't understand that, maybe you need to find another job. The tension between father and son grew every day. Junior began holding secret meetings with other company executives, trying to form a coalition against William's new policies. Elizabeth noticed the stress the situation was causing her husband. William, are you sure you're doing the right thing? She asked one evening over dinner. I'm not sure about anything, Elizabeth. I just know I can't live with a guilty conscience anymore. And what if the inspection reveals serious problems? Then we'll face the consequences. Together. Elizabeth took her husband's hand across the table. I'm proud of you, you know. It took a while, but you're finally acting like the man I married. 3 weeks after the cruel prank in the square, Richard knocked on William's office door with a grave expression. He was carrying a folder full of documents. William, I need to talk to you urgently. William felt his stomach tighten. From Richard's expression, the news wasn't good. Did the inspection results come in? They did, Richard said, sitting heavily in the chair. And they're not good at all. William closed his eyes for a moment, bracing himself. Tell me everything. Richard opened the folder and pulled out several technical reports. All 3 firms reached the same conclusion. The building structure is compromised. The inferior quality materials used in the support beams are showing signs of premature fatigue. What does that mean exactly? It means the building could collapse at any moment, especially if there's seismic activity or strong winds. William's legs felt weak. How many people live in the building? 243 families, approximately 800 people, including children. William stood and began pacing the office. What do I need to do? First, evacuate the building immediately. We can't let anyone stay there even one more day. And then? Then, demolish and rebuild completely. There's no way to make safe structural repairs given the extent of the problems. William sat back down, feeling the weight of his past decisions crashing down on him. How much will this cost? Richard checked a spreadsheet. To temporarily relocate all the families, cover hotels and rental apartments for at least a year, demolish the current building, and construct a new one. I'm looking at roughly $50 million. William did the math quickly. It was practically his entire personal fortune. So, that's it, he said finally. I'll be broke. William, you don't have to do this alone. We can try negotiating with insurance, the investors. No, Richard, William shook his head. This is my responsibility. My decisions caused this problem. But if you spend all your money on this, there'll be nothing left for you and your family. William looked out the window, watching the city below. Richard, do you have children? I do. Emily, whom you've met, and a 2-year-old Nathan. And you'd do anything to protect them, wouldn't you? Of course. Then you understand why I have to do this. Those 800 people are someone's children, parents, grandparents. They are just as important as Emily and Nathan. Richard fell silent for a few moments. William, can I ask you something? Of course. Why are you doing all this? I mean, you could just pretend you don't know about the problems. Hide the reports. No one would ever know you ordered the inspection. William picked up the repaired watch he now always kept on his office desk. Do you know what this watch taught me, Richard? No. It taught me that time lost to pride and cruelty never comes back. But I still have time to do the right thing, and I won't waste another second. That afternoon, William called an emergency meeting with all the company's directors. Junior was present, along with 5 other executives. What I'm about to say must stay in this room, William began. We have an emergency situation at Evergreen Gardens Residences. He explained the inspection results and his decisions on how to proceed. Dad, have you lost your mind? Junior stood up from his chair. $50 million. That will bankrupt the company. The company won't go bankrupt, William said calmly. I'll cover everything with my personal money. Your personal money is our personal money too, Junior shouted. I'm your son. I have a right to that inheritance. You have a right to an inheritance, Junior, but you don't have a right to an inheritance built on other people's suffering. The financial director, Mr. Franklin, a 60-year-old man who had worked at the company for 30 years, asked to speak. William, with all due respect, are you sure you want to do this? It's a lot of money. I'm sure, Franklin. In fact, I want you to prepare all the necessary documents. I'm selling my majority stake in the company to raise the money. The room fell completely silent. You're selling the company? Another director asked, incredulous. I'm selling my share of the company. You can keep the stocks, divide them among yourselves, or sell them to other investors. But I can no longer be the owner of a company knowing I have such a big debt to society. Junior stormed out of the room, slamming the door. The other directors whispered among themselves. Richard, who had remained quiet throughout the meeting, approached William. William, have you really thought this through? Your life will change completely. It already has, Richard. It changed the moment you returned that watch to me working. That night, William came home and found Junior talking animatedly with Elizabeth in the living room. When he saw him enter, Junior stood up. Dad, Mom told me you're thinking of selling the company. Please tell me it's a joke. It's not a joke, Junior. I've already made my decision. Elizabeth walked over to her husband. William, Junior explained the costs to me. Is it really necessary to sell everything? It's necessary, Elizabeth, and it's the right thing to do. But Dad, Junior tried again, can't we just move the families to other apartments and be done with it? Why build a whole new building? William looked at his son with a mix of sadness and disappointment. Junior, those families bought apartments. They made the biggest investment of their lives. I can't just take them out of their homes and put them anywhere. They deserve to get back exactly what they paid for. But 50 million, Dad. Junior, when you were little, remember how you always asked me to tell you stories about your grandfather? I remember. Your grandfather started this company with $1,000 he borrowed and the determination to build safe, beautiful homes for people. He always said our job was to give families the most precious thing they could have, a safe home. William sat in his favorite armchair. I strayed from those values, Junior. I started thinking only about money. But your grandfather would be ashamed of me if he knew I risked 800 lives to save a few dollars. Junior sat down too, still trying to understand. But what about us, Dad, and our family? Are we going to be poor? Elizabeth sat on the arm of William's chair. Junior, we're not going to be poor. We'll have less money, that's true, but we'll have a clear conscience. Mom, are you supporting this madness? I'm supporting my husband in a difficult but right decision, Elizabeth said firmly. And you, as his son, should do the same. Junior shook his head, visibly frustrated. I don't understand you. You're throwing away a fortune over a mistake that happened 2 years ago. It's not just any mistake, Junior, said William. It's a mistake that could cost lives, and not anonymous lives. They're people like us with dreams, fears, families. Dad, you can't save everyone. I can't save everyone, William agreed, but I can save these 800 people, and I will. The next morning, William went personally to Evergreen Gardens residences. He wanted to speak with the residents before the news leaked to the papers. He parked his car in front of the building and watched the morning activity. Children heading to school, adults leaving for work, elderly people walking their pets. It was hard to believe all that normalcy could be tragically interrupted if he didn't act quickly. He entered the building and asked to speak with the superintendent. Mr. Johnson, a 70-year-old retiree, greeted him warmly. Mr. Harrison, what an honor to have you here. How can I help you? William took a deep breath. Mr. Johnson, I need to speak with all the residents. It's about the building's safety. Safety? Did something happen? Yes, something did, and I need to explain everything to you as soon as possible. Mr. Johnson organized an emergency meeting for that same afternoon in the building's party hall. William spent the whole day mentally rehearsing how he would explain the situation. By 7 that evening, the hall was packed. Entire families showed up, worried by the urgent tone of the invitation. William stood before more than 200 people and felt the weight of responsibility on his shoulders. Good evening, everyone. My name is William Harrison, and I own the construction company that built this building. A murmur spread through the room. Most people knew who he was, at least by name. I'm here today to share a very serious situation, and to take full responsibility for it. William explained the inspection, the structural issues, and the risks the building posed. That's why I need to ask all of you to leave the building tonight. I know this is terrible, but I can't let you stay in danger. The silence that followed was deafening. Then voices began to rise. Leave the building and go where? Shouted a woman holding a baby. Who's going to pay for our losses? Asked a middle-aged man. I will, William said, raising his voice to be heard. I'll cover hotels or rental apartments for every family for as long as needed. What about our apartments? Asked an elderly woman. We invested our life savings here. You'll get new apartments, William promised, in the same location, same size, same standard, only this time with complete structural safety. How can we trust you? Someone shouted from the back. You're the one who built this faulty building. William felt the weight of the accusation. You're right not to trust me. I failed you once, but this time I'll do things differently. I'll hire an independent company to oversee the entire construction, and I'll give my personal guarantee that everything will be done right. Personal guarantee? What does that mean? Asked Mr. Johnson. It means if there are any issues with the new building, I'll resolve them with my own money. Forever. A young woman stood up. Mr. Harrison, my name is Sarah. My husband and I bought our apartment here 6 months ago. It's our first home. How can we be sure you won't disappear after we leave here? William looked into the woman's eyes. "Sarah, I'll deposit all the money needed for the new building's construction into a blocked account before demolition even begins. You'll personally oversee every step of the process." "And if the money isn't enough?" asked another resident. "Then I'll sell everything I have to cover it," William said simply. The room fell silent again. People were processing the magnitude of what William was promising. Mr. Johnson stood up. "Mr. Harrison, I'm 80 years old. I've seen a lot in life, and I can say I've never seen a businessman take responsibility like this. I'm not doing anything exceptional, Mr. Johnson. I'm just doing what I should have done from the start. But if you hadn't discovered the structural issues, we'd never have known. You could have stayed quiet." "I could have, yes, but I wouldn't have been able to sleep at night knowing 800 people were in danger because of me." An elderly woman rose, leaning on a cane. "Mr. Harrison, my name is Mrs. Eleanor. I live here with my daughter and 2 grandchildren. When my late husband was alive, he always said the measure of a man isn't in what he has, but in what he does when he must do the right thing." She paused, looking directly at William. "You're doing the right thing, and for that you have my trust." Others began voicing their support. Slowly, the initial anger turned into respect, even admiration. "Mr. Harrison," Sarah spoke again, "when can we return home?" "If all goes as planned, in a year. Maybe a little longer, but I promise it'll be as fast as possible." "And where will we stay during that time?" "I've already rented temporary apartments in 3 buildings nearby, apartments similar to yours here. Tomorrow morning a team will assist with the move." William spent 2 more hours answering questions and listening to concerns. When the meeting ended, he was exhausted, but relieved. Mrs. Eleanor approached him on his way out. "Mr. Harrison, may I give you some advice?" "Of course, Mrs. Eleanor. Your children may not understand what you're doing now, but one day they will, and they'll be proud of the father they have." "Thank you, Mrs. Eleanor. Your words mean a lot to me. One last thing, Mr. Harrison." "Yes?" "That watch you're always fiddling with in your pocket. Was it your father's?" William took out the watch and showed it to her. "Actually, no. It's a long story. The best stories usually are," Mrs. Eleanor smiled. "And they often start with someone doing wrong and end with them learning to do right." William smiled back. "You're absolutely right. That's exactly it." End of story. And now, dear listener, we'd love to hear your thoughts on this tale of transformation and redemption. Do you believe William made the right choice by sacrificing his fortune to right his wrongs? Share in the comments what you think about this journey of a man who learned that true worth isn't in what we own, but in the choices we make when facing our responsibilities. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more heartfelt stories.